What's going on, everyone? Fearless Football Forecast here. I'm so excited to bring you this video today. It is our DFS lineups. We're going to be doing this every single week. We're going to be going head to head, and we're also entering the Sunday Million. So who knows, maybe next week we're a millionaire. We hope you guys are going to find this video educational, as we're both going to give our opinions on which value plays are the best during this week's DFS. So make sure to subscribe and like and share, because we're going to be doing this every single week. So we're going to just take turns going. We're going to go position by position. You're up first with your quarterback.
Yeah, so for quarterback, I'm going with probably a more popular play. I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. I think this game's going to be an absolute shootout. I think Herbert is going to show the world that he's a stud, as he was last year. I think he's going to have close to, if not 400 yards passing and 3 or 4 passing touchdowns. I just think he's going to ball out, and it's going to be a crazy game. He's going to score a ton of points.
I love Herbert this week as well. I have him in a lot of lineups, but since we're doing different ones here, I'm going to go with my start of the week from our podcast. Go check that out, by the way. It is Lamar Jackson. I just expect him to get so many points this week, not only using his arm, but also his legs. A lot of the yardage that you expect to go to J.K. Dobbins, I think Lamar is going to get a lot of it as well. I really like the amount of, just the way he's going to spread the ball around. It's really hard to pinpoint one specific player on this team, but against a bad Texans defense and a rookie in C.J. Stroud, I expect a lot of picks and turnovers from Stroud that are going to end up going to the Ravens. So Lamar is going to have plenty of chances to run buck wild all over the field.
Yeah, and speaking of J.K. Dobbins, that's going to be my RB1 for this one. I just think that he's going to have so many opportunities, potential 2-touchdown game. I think that the Ravens, by the second half, aren't going to really be pushing the pace and passing all that much. And I think that he's just going to have a phenomenal game, close to 100 yards rushing, at least 1 touchdown. I think he's going to be great. And then the second running back I have is Antonio Gibson, another guy who is cheaper, has an extremely good matchup against the Cardinals. And, Brian Robinson is the bruiser back, but I think that Gibson is still going to get a decent amount of carries, and I think that he's more talented than Brian Robinson. So I think he's going to find a way to be productive for fantasy this week.
Love them both. And then as far as my running backs, where you went more with value, I'm spending up this week on running back. My first pick is Josh Jacobs. I love the Raiders this week against Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. As much as I loved Russell Wilson last year, and I've been thinking all offseason that he's going to improve, the question mark of what if he doesn't is still there, and that would just lead to such tensions rising if they lost to a team like the Raiders in week 1. And that's what I see happening. Josh Jacobs is a talented back. He had the most broken tackles last year. And this is against the team that may have their confidence wary if the Raiders go down and score at first. They're also the 23rd worst against the run. I expect Josh Jacobs to get even more carries than he did last year, now that he got paid and now that Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback. So it's not like Carr is going to be dropping back and throwing into Devontae Adams more often like last year. And Jacobs still had a lot of work. I think Jacobs is going to absolutely eat today. Another player that I think is going to eat this weekend is Cam Akers. Watching the Seahawks preseason, I thought that myself could get 100 yards rushing against the Seahawks defense. They looked horrid. And so I expect Cam Akers to be utilized similar to how he was the last 5 weeks of the season last year, especially with Cooper Kupp injured. There's going to be a lot less passing going on. I love Akers at a value there at 6,600.
All right, I'm going to jump into my receivers. The first one, another guy who's going to be extremely popular this week, Tyreek Hill. Like I said, I think this game's going to be a shootout. You're kind of going to see a pattern with a couple of guys that I have on this team. If you think a game's going to ball all out, you're playing against however many thousands of people, you might as well just go all in and take your shot. So Tyreek Hill, my wide receiver 1, I think he's going to have a phenomenal game in this shootout. And on the other side, Keenan Allen, I think that he is also going to have a really good game. He's just going to get peppered with targets. I think he's going to have at least 100 yards. And I think that he's just going to get a ton of catches, ton of yards. And, if he can find a way to fall in the end zone, great. But if not, I think he's going to be productive. My third receiver, I'm going to go with Chris Olave. this one's kind of a weird one. I think a lot of people might think that this is going to be a lower scoring game, and I think it could end up being that way. But I think that Chris Olave is going to tear the Tennessee Titans defense apart. I think he's going to come out week one and really put everybody on notice. I think he's going to have a really, really good game this week.
Yeah, I love your rationale. Also, I mean, the Titans secondary is just so bad. So Derek Carr might be out to prove something week one. So I love the Olave play there. My number one receiver, I am going to go with the number one receiver in all of football with Justin Jefferson. It just always seems like week one, he dominates. I expect that to be no different this week in a game that both you and I think is going to be a little bit closer than most people expect. And if it is closer, that means Kirk Cousins is going to need to throw the ball a lot more. The Bucs secondary is not that great as well. And I think Jefferson exposes it, goes for 150 and a touchdown. The next is probably my favorite player, and he's in every single lineup of mine. I've made like 12 different lineups, and he's in every single one because Calvin Ridley should be up there in the range of the Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson for this week, as the Colts secondary is absolutely horrible. Calvin Ridley is going to get a lot of targets. I think that even if Ridley isn't the guy for Trevor Lawrence throughout the entire season and he's not the man, I expect the week one storyline to be, wow, Calvin Ridley is back. I expect him to just dominate this week against a really bad Colts secondary in a game script that favors Trevor Lawrence. My final receiver is actually a stack with my quarterback, and that is Odell Beckham Jr. The reason why I'm picking Odell here is because it's week one. You don't know how healthy he's going to be for the entire season, but Odell loves beating up on bad teams, and I expect Odell to do that this week. There was a quote this week that thought that he was going to be injured, and he called cap on that, and I think he's really out to just prove that he still has it, so I love Odell this week.
Yeah, and then I'm going to jump into my tight end position, which, again, if you've been listening to the podcast, I mentioned him as my star of the week. I'm going to go with Tyler Higbee at 5,300. I think the value on him is really good. Without Cooper Kupp, he might get 15 targets. I think he's guaranteed for 5-6 catches, right around 60 yards. And if he can find a way to punch one into the end zone, it's going to be a fantastic day for a cheaper option at tight end.
And this is actually the first and only pick that we have together. And I am also going with Tyler Higbee. Like you said, his value is just undeniable. There are a lot of tight ends that I like in that range too. I really liked Njoku this week. I like Everett, but none of them are guaranteed to be the number 2 option or possibly number 1 option in the passing game. So I love Tyler Higbee, especially in a good matchup against the Seahawks, who are the worst against tight ends.
All right, and then I'm going to go into my flex spot, and I already said it, but this game's going to be a shootout. I'm going to go with Mike Williams. Give me Justin Herbert's top 2 targets in the passing game. I think that they're going to score, at least 30 points, and I think that both of them are going to have productive days. Like I said, I think that game's going to be really high scoring, and a bunch of points are going to be scored in that game. So I'm really excited to have that major stack going back with them with that game.
And because I paid up on so many players at the top half with Lamar, Josh Jacobs, and Justin Jefferson, I really have to dig deep for my flex, especially because I also paid up for a defense. You think I have 8,000 remaining, so I could just take a bad defense, but I went with a player who is sitting at 4,200 right now, and that is Sean Tucker. I personally was a Rachaad White believer, but it seems like the reports from camp are saying that Tucker's going to get a lot more work than was previously reported. At the end of the day, Rachaad White is still not a goal line back, and I think that work is going to go to Sean Tucker. I expect him to get at least 1 touchdown this week. I'm betting on that myself, and I was just looking at players in that 4,000 range and just thinking which one can just get a touchdown to add a little bit more. And like you said, there's thousands and thousands of people playing this. How many of them have Sean Tucker in their lineup?
All right, and to cap it off, my defense, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, I mentioned this on the podcast. I actually think the Buccaneers are going to win this game. I see a scenario where they get a little bit more pressure than Kirk Cousins is going to like. And, force a couple turnovers, have a few sacks, And like I said, I think the Bucs are going to win. They're really, really cheap, which is always great. So if you think the defense can be decent and they're really cheap, it's really a no-brainer.
And for my defense, I am going to pay up a little bit and take the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm wearing my Gators jersey. I love Anthony Richardson. I think he's going to have a fantastic season in the NFL. I think he's going to have a great career, but an awful week one against a Jaguars defense that is really great up front. At the worst case scenario, you're going to get 10 points from the Jags defense just on sacks alone. But this is Anthony Richardson we're talking about. It's a quarterback that turns the ball over all the time. I could see the Jags having 4 turnovers and 5 sacks in this game. I don't expect it to be close. They are by far my favorite defense of the week. I would take them over even the Ravens, Commanders, Vikings at the top. I love the Jags this week. So just for a quick recap, I have Lamar Jackson, Josh Jacobs, Cam Akers, Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley, OBJ, Tyler Higbee, Sean Tucker, and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And I have Justin Herbert, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, Chris Olave, Tyler Higbee, Mike Williams, and the Buccaneers defense.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you guys enjoyed and come back. Maybe we're both millionaires next week. Maybe one of us is a millionaire. Make sure to ride our DFS lineups, and we shall see you next week.